Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and in preparation for the release of a new piece of DLC and with upcoming constant flow of Steam sales and Paradox sales in mind, I thought I'd do a slightly different sort of guide video, a Crusader Kings II DLC buyer's guide. With over $330 of DLC released over 6 years, Crusader Kings II from Paradox is perhaps one of the more intimidating games to get into, merely because of the price point. That's a bit of a shame, really, since it's also an extremely fun sort of strategy game, one in which you lead a dynasty playing as a person and their offspring rather than a nation. One where you can rise from being a lowly count to a king or even an emperor, where you can bed your rivals' wives and have 100 bastard children, only to have your one legitimate heir to die of dysentery, throwing your nation into anarchy. Truly a terrific experience. So hopefully this video makes it a little easier to swallow the $350-ish pill that is the Crusader Kings II DLC list, letting you know what to expect from each and which ones are worth it. If this guide does help you, consider using the Humble Bundle store affiliate link I provide in the description down below to pick up whatever you're interested in, while helping support charity and the channel. Just a reminder, these are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Which DLC do you recommend? Which do you advise steering clear from? To kick things off, we can eliminate anything labeled as an ebook, a shield pack, a portrait pack, a music pack, a content pack, or a unit pack. These are purely audio-visual DLCs, adding music, portraits, and models that have no real impact on gameplay features or mechanics, and unless you're playing EU4 as well with the hopes of carrying your game over from Crusader Kings II to Europa Universalis 4, you can ignore the Save Converter DLC as well. It's spottily supported at best anyway. This is a very quick way to drop about $115 from the overall bill without sacrificing any gameplay. Off to a good start. Onwards to the real DLC. Sword of Islam released in 2012, and it unlocks Muslim rulers in the game, and without it, you can only play as Christian characters. The DLC also brings with it some additional mechanics, though they are just for these new Muslim rulers. Decadence can cause your dynasty to collapse through immoral behavior, while there's also the introduction of multiple wives, new Muslim-specific events and branching decisions, and a new Muslim succession type based on prestige, and a new conquest casus belli, specific to the Muslim world. To clarify, a casus belli is a reason to go to war with the nation, and this is just a quick way to go to war in Crusader Kings. Other methods can take a very long time, taking decades to fabricate claims on a province before you can make a move. While this is a pretty decent-sized DLC, it's fairly narrow in scope, focusing only on the Muslim world. If you aren't interested in playing in this part of the world right away, you can hold off on this DLC. I'd highly recommend getting it once you've played a few feudal Catholic nations and have a feel for the game, but until you're interested in playing in the region, and that might be right from the get-go, you can ignore the DLC. Legacy of Rome is centered around the Byzantine Empire, introducing new decisions and event chains for the faction, giving them the opportunity to restore the glory of the Roman Empire by conquering all of its former territories. We see new options for Orthodox rulers regarding the split of Eastern and Western churches, and we also see the introduction of a new army type. In Crusader Kings, armies have to be disbanded between wars, and then need to be called to war and mustered from scratch every time a new war begins. The new army type, retinues, are standing armies and never need to be disbanded. For a mere $5 or so, this DLC is worth getting. While most features are specific to the Orthodox Church and the Byzantine Empire, the retinues are pretty important to have across the board, and I'd say this one needs to be picked up. Again, it's not very expensive, and it's even cheaper when it's on sale, of course. Sunset Invasion is a somewhat controversial piece of DLC. A bit of an alternate history DLC, it introduces an Aztec invasion to Europe during the late game, bringing with them the Nahuatl culture and the pagan faith. While Crusader Kings has some goofy moments in it, they certainly aren't necessary for a good first experience with the game. You can skip this one for starters and pick it up later if you're feeling like something a little ahistoric. The Republic is similar to Sword of Islam in that it's focused around a very specific type of nation. This time, merchant republics, including Venice, Genoa, and the Hansa. There are lots of new events specific to these merchant republics, and as merchant republics, you're seeing elections that can either keep you in power or remove you from it. Trade posts are introduced, allowing you to grow trade networks to gain wealth. Much like the Sword of Islam, this is not one you need to get right away, and instead, you can wait till you've grown tired of feudal European choices and then pick between this and the Sword of Islam DLC, depending on where you'd like to venture next. The Old Gods is an absolute must-have DLC in my opinion, bringing a plethora of new options to the game, expanding its timeline, and overall just being a good time worth the price tag. Pagans and Zoroastrians become available to play with lots of new mechanics for each, and a new start date is introduced as well, allowing you to start your game at 867 CE, when the Vikings had a solid foothold on the British Isles. Viking mechanics are introduced, allowing coastal raids and river navigation, while Zoroastrians are able to bring back the Persian Empire through conquest, and we also see the ability to reform pagan faiths. Additional mechanics include adding more depth to existing mechanics and options as well, making for some important changes across the board, no matter where you want to play. The start date is an interesting one. There are lots of options introduced with the earlier time frame, and the overall experience can be a lot more enjoyable as a result. I say this is a must-have even for first-time players, even if you're not particularly interested in the time period. Sons of Abraham is quite a major DLC for the game, covering all of the Abrahamic faiths with various new additions. Judaism is added as a playable religion, bringing new event chains, branching decisions, and mechanics with it, alongside the ability to restore the Kingdom of Israel. We also see the Catholic College of Cardinals bringing in mechanics tied to the Pope, while some new Catholic holy orders, the ability to borrow money from the Knights Templar, the option for Christian pilgrimages, and the addition of Christians being able to force people to take vows and become nuns and monks means that there are a lot of additions to the base game. Muslims also get additional decisions to make, while holy orders have been added for faiths that lacked them earlier, and there are tons of new events added for all Abrahamic faiths. I say this one is a must-have right from the get-go, as it adds a lot of options and mechanics to some important and interesting parts of the game. It also pairs nicely with Sword of Islam for when you're ready to go to that part of the world with your playthroughs. Rajas of India opens up, as the name might suggest, the Indian subcontinent as a playable region, unlocking Hindu, Jain, and Buddhist rulers. There are lots of events introduced for these three new religions, and all the new options that come with it, and we also get war elephant units, because India. While it's an interesting addition to a game that is centered around the Mediterranean, the unfortunate truth is that the game remains centered around the Mediterranean, and as a result, the Indian subcontinent feels a little isolated and a little less fleshed out. While the region is interesting and flavorful, it can be completely ignored until you're done with Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, unless you want to jump into it first for whatever reason. Charlemagne pulls the earliest possible start date to 769 CE, focusing around the history between Charlemagne and Carloman. There are plenty of new events added for them, and we also see the introduction of the Zunist faith with its own religious mechanics. The later start dates don't feature this religion, but it is available if you choose to start this early on. The most intriguing introduction with this DLC is the ability to create custom kingdoms and empires without being restricted by history, if you hold a large enough tract of land, that is. If you're interested in having access to this time period, by all means pick this one up. I wouldn't say it's essential for a first playthrough, and you can wait till after you're familiar with the game to get this earlier start date. The creation of custom kingdoms and empires is not essential to the enjoyment of the game, though it does add an extra layer of fun. It's just not single-handedly worth the price point. Way of Life is going to sound like the smallest DLC, but it is definitely one worth picking up. All it does is add character focuses. Now, this allows characters to pick one of 10 long-term focuses, resulting in a variety of events and branching paths that help develop the characters down the chosen path. In some cases, you'll have access to new character behavioral options and interactions. Even though it only technically adds one feature, the one feature goes such a long way in making the game a more fulfilling experience. You get many more options, many more strategies, and many more ways of tackling situations and role-playing, and just so many more interesting events that add variety to any given playthrough. In fact, Way of Life is the one that allows you to seduce, for example, rivals' wives, or as I'm doing in this playthrough, this is gonna sound terrible, my liege lord's wife, who happened to also be my stepsister. Nonetheless, the DLC is cheap even when it's not on sale, and it is an absolute must-get, I'd say. Horse Lords adds a very different playstyle for a very different people, nomadic hordes. We see completely new succession and mercenary mechanics fitting of nomadic tribal clans, and new options when it comes to what to do with feudal holdings that are arguably useless for a horde faction. We see the introduction of new trade routes from the Silk Road, and we also see the option of forcing others into becoming a tributary state after war. There are some cool mechanics being added here, but they're pretty much restricted to a specific set of factions, much like Sword of Islam, and as a result of that, unless you're interested in playing as these horse lords, there's no reason to pick this DLC up. So here's another one that can wait till after you're done with your first few trips around the block. Conclave is another chunky DLC that adds a ton of new systems and changes the importance of some pre-existing ones. The council you keep now plays a much bigger role, able to vote on issues and also able to undermine you, though you also gain the option of using favors in exchange for votes. Vassals that are powerful enough will start to get very upset if they're not on your council, too, and these factors come together to make the relationship management and internal affairs parts of the game a lot more interesting. The implementation of regencies and realm laws have also been tweaked, as have the education mechanics that dictate how your children grow into healthy, contributing members of society. I'd say this is one definitely worth getting if you like having wrenches thrown in your plans especially. For a first-time player, the added complexity and roadblocks provided by this DLC might be a little frustrating, but I'm personally a big fan of how the DLC adds another layer of challenge and strategy to parts of the game that make the game unique to begin with. Crusader Kings is all about character relationships, and this DLC stresses that all the more. It makes it more fun to play as a lesser noble, a vassal to a higher lord, and it also makes it more fun to be playing at the higher end of the class structure because now you're dealing with the happiness of your vassals, a lot more than before. I'd say, again, it's definitely worth getting. The REAPER'S DLC brings a lot of interesting changes to the board, including the possibility of dying of dysentery within minutes of starting a new game. Always a good feeling, though I think it actually came with the free game update that came out at the same time. The whole disease system was reworked, introducing new diseases with new symptoms and treatments, and we also see a new role brought in, that of the court physician. Diseases result in some very interesting dynamics. The Black Plague has been revamped with a bunch of new events and options, and epidemics can cause provinces to struggle and die out to disease, reducing the money and manpower. Hospitals can be built to counter the effects of disease, and places that don't suffer through war and disease can get various benefits of being prosperous. We're also seeing the option to isolate yourself in your castle to avoid epidemics, and this can result in its own event chains as well. And the cherry on top of this disease-ridden cake is the introduction of new ways to torture and execute prisoners who have wronged you. The implementation of all these features in a time period that was pretty exposed to such issues is nice to see. I like the extra complexity it adds and the new challenge and options being introduced. I'd say this one is worth getting to enjoy all the extra features it introduces, no matter who you're playing as. Monks and Mystics adds societies as a feature, allowing characters to join various societies, climbing their ladder to gain access to new options and abilities. Lots of new events are added related to these societies, and the societies themselves range from that of the Hashashin assassins, to the monastic orders, to satanic cults that can use evil forces to make themselves live longer and do other supernatural things. Now, the societies add a really nice set of events and options to the game, allowing for a fair bit of role-playing as a result and a lot more character interaction as well, but in some ways I find the societies to feel a little fantastical, not so much as an Aztec invasion into Europe, but I didn't feel like they added anything particularly fitting to the game in some cases. With that said, they are a really fun add-on for those looking to add an extra layer of role-playing. I wouldn't say this is a necessary piece of DLC, not right at the beginning at least, but if you want the extra options, feel free to pick it up, especially on sale. Jade Dragon is another more region-specific add-on, though this one's a little strange. While adding China as an entity, China doesn't actually feature on the map. It's off-world, though its presence can be felt through the Western Protectorate realm that draws support from the Chinese Empire. We're also able to invade China, said with air quotes, in order to install our dynasties on the throne. The Silk Road evolves with some new mechanics as well, tying into what's happening off the map in China, and we also see a few religions unlocked that are unlocked by prior DLC as well. Bon and Kurmazda, I believe. They're both unlocked by the old gods, and then Taoism is unlocked by Rajas of India as well. Finally, a universal set of updates include rally points for raised troops to be told where to go upon being levied, and new casus belli options that help smaller nations primarily as well. I think this one is actually an easy skip, at least for the first few playthroughs. It only really makes a difference on the eastern edges of the map, and the little extras across the board are minor compared to what some of the other DLCs offered. Save this one for later, I'd say. Apart from these chunky pieces of downloadable content that all have their merits and flaws, there are some smaller pieces of DLC that you may or may not be interested in. Personally, I recommend the Ruler Designer and Customization Pack, though they are not at all necessary to enjoy the game. The Ruler Designer simply allows you to make your own starting ruler from scratch. From appearance to culture to traits and stats, you can make your ruler as majestic or decrepit as you like. This couples nicely with the customization pack, which lets you change hair and beard styles whenever you'd like, and also lets you rename titles. It really is just more about role-playing a bit more if that's your thing. It's definitely mine, hence the easy recommendation, but keep in mind that you're just getting some more role-playing options before you think it's a much larger piece of DLC. I'll likely be reviewing Holy Fury around the time it releases and adding my thoughts on that to the channel. If you're watching this video after Holy Fury released, you should see a little eye at the top right corner of the screen that'll take you to an in-depth review. Just to wrap things up, here's a quick recap. Definitely worth getting are the Old Gods, Way of Life, Conclave, the Reaper's Due, Sons of Abraham, Legacy of Rome, Ruler Designer, and Customization Pack. Worth getting after a few playthroughs are the Sword of Islam, the Republic, Charlemagne, Horse Lords, Rajas of India, and Jade Dragon. Everything else can be skipped, unless you're a completionist. Hopefully that helps you really drive down the cost of purchasing Crusader Kings II, and hopefully you can join me and everyone in our Discord as well in talking about the crazy shenanigans you get up to. The game is extremely fun, it's a very different type of strategy game, which is the primary draw to it, and I do hope that this guide has helped you break the ice with that extremely uncomfortable total price. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon if you'd like to stay notified of updates. The channel focuses primarily on strategy and tactical games, coming in with reviews, previews, let's plays, and videos like this. I hope you enjoyed your watch, and before I go, I'd just like to give a big shout out to all of my patrons and channel members for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, cheers.